everybody, welcome to this fun stamping class, learning how to layer your projects and create depth with your stamps. So this is the seam we're going to make. Now I know this one's a little large, it's too much to be a card, so if you want to focus it down, size it down, we're going to concentrate on this much area first, and we'll do this and then I'll move on to this. We will color last, and odds are we're not going to get to the coloring. I'm not going to do the coloring today. That's something that you can work on at your leisure. I did use watercolor pencil crayons for this picture, and I did use some, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, the Christmas bulbs on the trees. I used some shimmer watercolor paints for those, just to highlight them and give it a little bit of glimmer, because every Christmas tree should have a little bit of shimmer and shine to it. But everything else, I used watercolor pencil crayons. I absolutely love those because you can get nice bright colors. It's easy to do. You can get all your shading in there. It's a fun way to color your pictures. Just think about what medium you're going to color with and use the appropriate ink before you start your project. So in your kit, you would have received this All in Create stamp kit number 1232, and it is called Gang Avenue. I chose this kit because I thought this gentleman looked like Santa Claus, and that's what inspired me to do this Christmas stamp kit. You've got a lot of elements to work with here, so it's going to be fun. As well, in your kit, you would have received All in Create stamp number 1217 with these 3 beautiful Christmas trees in it. As you can see, I used 2 of the 3 within my picture here. And I believe, and you received your masking fluid, your Cosmic Shimmer masking fluid. Give it a really good shake before you start today. All right, and I did show in my video presentation of it various items that you're going to need to complete this project. I recommended that you could use these teeny tiny dauber sticks from Hunky Dory. They do work well, or paintbrushes. Now, you will ruin your paintbrush. You can see even when you try to wash it out, I may end up grabbing this paintbrush a couple of times. You can pick a lot of it out, but what I find is it just pulls the fibers of the paintbrush out after a while. So just maybe some cheap dollar store ones, whatever you have in your stash that have maybe seen better days. All right. You can also use, now this is an alcohol spreader. It's got a really fine tip. You can use these as well, or I did pick up at the dollar store some silicone tipped tools, and they work fairly well as well. So a piece of paper, cardstock, you can use watercolor paper, you can use regular cardstock. I did not really notice a difference between the two, so that again is totally up to you which one you would like to use. Now, when I created this, I worked off a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, and then I trimmed it down. So as I built up my cityscape, my street scene, I just kind of gauged it on the paper and, just randomly made some perimeters for it. And then I cut it down after the fact and I mounted it. So if you want to do that, or if you want to work on a select size, get prepared and prep that up right now, and you can do it that way. So without further ado, we're going to get started. I am going to use some VersaFine pigment ink today for my stamping. This is Onyx Black. And where's my platform? And I'm using a stamping platform as well. So I'm going to put my paper in. Sorry, the weather is very chilly here in Canada today. Oop. We were 0 degrees Celsius, which is 32 degrees Fahrenheit this morning. When I left for work, it was rather chilly. So there is where I'm going to start. Just going to get this centered up nice on the camera. Let that focus. So I wonder, I don't think I'm going to be able to keep this in the picture. Actually, maybe I can do it like this. There we go. That sort of works. I know there's some glare on that, but that will kind of, you can kind of follow the image a little bit. So when you are doing your layering using masking fluid, you will always build your pictures, your scenes. You're going to start with the item that is frontmost in the picture. So in this case, it's going to be the building that is closest to us. So in this particular scene, there are 2 sets, so it's kind of segmented. There is this one and then this one. Okay, so we are going to start stamping right here. I'm not going to bother with these right now. I think I'm going to leave them out of the picture entirely today. If you choose to make one this big, by all means, go ahead and stamp them. But I'm going to focus on this half. So right now I'm going to go to my stamp set and I'm going to find this roof piece. So there is my roof. And I'm going to find this one here. Take the backing piece off. Oh, I forgot to. You're going to need your heat gun. If you are going to be working along with me from start to finish, you're going to want your heat gun. So now I'm going to find my base piece here. These are separate. So I'm looking for this one here, and it has this piece on it. There it is there. I'm just laying these out so I know that I have all the pieces I need. Now I'm going to find this little piece right here. Just like that. And then I'm looking for this little piece as well. This is just like a window guard. Some people, like if you have a ground floor window and you live in town as opposed to maybe in the country, you might have just metal bars on your window. These are very old buildings, and this is what they used to look like. So now when you're looking for it, there are 2 in this set, and one faces one way and one faces the other way. So you want to make sure that you're finding the correct one. So that's that one. So I want this one here, right? Correct. So you can see, now you can't really see with it like that. Let's pull it up and see. So if you're following along making the exact same scene, it is right to the left of this roof piece that we're using. So the bottom is this little fancy filigree and the top is flat. And the flat portion goes against your building. All right, so now I have all the pieces that I need to create this part of the building. And we're going to start with that because that is right in the foreground of the scene. I'm going to tuck this in under here. All right. So I'm actually going to start with the little side building right there, the one that's over right there to the left of the building. So I want it to start in just a little bit because you can see these buildings come out from it. So I'm going to give myself an imaginary street, and I'm going to try and get it a lot more level than I did with the previous one. So there we go. I'll mount that up on my platform. I got nice coverage with that. Clean that up. Just going to dry this off a little bit. Doesn't have to be, you want it dry to touch anyway, so that you're not picking up any of the ink off of it when you go to put the next one on. So right now, we don't need any masking fluid. These scene builder sets from AALL Create were actually created that you could do a scene, you could create an image without using masking fluid. But it would not be a 3D scene. It's only going to be a one-dimensional scene. So this is going to show you both ways to do it. So what you need to do is you're going to want to line up this edge right here on your stamp. And I actually like to, because you can see through the stamp a little bit, and you want to almost overlap them. That edge of that stamp is going to sit right on top of the edge of the previous stamp. There we go. Load that up on here. So you can see how that lined up perfectly by just visually lining those two lines up together after you've stamped the first one. Get the outside edge of the second one lined up. And then again, I'm just gonna give it a quick fan dry. And then the next piece is the balcony piece with the doors on them. And we are going to line up the very bottom of this one with the top of this one. Same concept as that one. We're going to line that up. And there will be a little bit of overhang, but that is how it's designed. Looks pretty good there. Might be off a little bit. It's hard for me without sticking my head under the camera to get that 100% lined up. It's different when you're working in your own space and you can get your head right in there over top of it. I'm short too, so I can't lean my head in too far. That's not too bad. So you can see how that has centered up nicely. No gaps. And if you have some gaps, take a fine tip permanent black marker, a Sharpie, whatever you have handy, and you can draw just something that's not, it's got to be permanent because you don't want it to run when you finish your image. If you end up with some gaps, take that black marker and just don't be afraid to draw some lines in. There's no real, you know, there's a lot of scraggly lines in here. They're meant to look old, and so don't be afraid to do that with your images. If you've made a mistake or you weren't quite lined up as well as you think, take that permanent fine black marker and touch it up. So again, now we're going to put this one on, and I want to line it up with this bottom piece and center it up on here. This is going to be the roof line. Now I'm going to do two this time because they're not interfering with each other. I'm going to put this little window thing in here as well. And there is nothing saying that there is a window here, but I just decided that I thought there should be a window here because it's a street side. And I wanted to put this in. So same idea, you want to line that up. It's sticking to everything and then it's pulling away. There we go. So I can do these two together at the same time because they're not connected with each other. So I'm going to get them in there. If you're having issues with your stamp sticking to your paper, this is what I like to do. I keep a ruler or something handy. Make sure your ruler's not magnetic or it gets stuck to the platform, or these will suck off. But I use the paintbrush handle, works beautifully for that. And then I'm going to ink both of these up. This VersaFine is really juicy. Oh, wait a minute, I got some ink on my platform. I want to get rid of that before I stamp. There we go. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that this ink is good and dry before I put on my masking fluid. So I am actually going to use my heat gun to make sure it's good and dry. And I want to show you right in here, I did not line that up 100%. Now I'm lucky in the sense that it looks perfectly fine and you're not going to notice that. But if you get a gap like that, like I said, use like a fine tip permanent Sharpie of some sort. You might have some drawing markers that you like to use. They work fabulous just for touching up things, and you can even add things with those markers and continue to build. Look how cute that looks. So hang tight just for a moment while I dry this, and hopefully it's not too loud. I'll leave the image here for you. You can have a peek at that while I do this. Doesn't take a lot to dry it up, so get that out of the way, put this back on my platform. Lost my magnet, I can't see it. There we go. Okay, so now we have this area all done, and before we can start building this area in, we need to use our masking fluid. We need to cover this area completely with our masking fluid, and that is going to create a protective coating on this, so when we move forward and we start stamping farther back in the scene, that it is protected and covered. So it does not require a lot, but you do want to cover the whole thing. So these little mini dabbers work great. Just cover this up. And you do want to be very precise with it, because whatever area you cover, nothing else is going to stick to it. So these little dabbers are perfect for this because you can get into really tiny areas. My hands are always a little shaky first thing in the morning, and I am recording this today. I'm recording this a day ahead. I will be available for chat if on the Stamplistic on the Crafters Classroom Facebook page. I will be monitoring any chat if you have any questions when you're doing this from the recording during my time slot, which is from 9 till 10 a.m. I will be there available. And I always try, if you have questions later, if you're doing it later, I try to get on there. I'll get a notification and respond to that. This is not a quick project. This is something that takes time and some patience, but the dividends really pay off in the end, I feel. And I find, like, I just now, when I look at my stamp collection at home, the possibilities are endless on the different ways that I can now use them. Now, one of the things to keep in mind when we get to, once this is done and we move on to the next set of stamping, your ink will not dry entirely on top of the masking fluid. So be very cautious where you're putting your hands. What I do is I take a piece of paper or some Post-it notes, something like that, and I'll put it over the area so I don't put my hands in it and then end up getting ink in other areas of my project that I don't want there. Paintbrushes are faster, but like I said, they do get ruined. And these dabbers, the teeny tiny dabbers, there is, I want to say there's 50 of them in a package. And they work fabulous, and you can use them you can use these on regular ink as well if you have some fine detail, some little projects with really fine details that you want. These little mini dabbers work great. Now the reason I'm going to finish and use the masking fluid on the entire project is you can ink, if you want, say you wanted to do an inked background on this scene rather than watercolor, you can ink right over top of it and do the whole, ink your entire background, or watercolor your entire background, whatever medium you want to use. You can use it right over top of this, do your entire background once you finish your picture, and then you can come back and remove this, and then you can color in all your little scene, and you've got a beautiful, no gaps, your background is completely covered in, and you haven't fought around all your little scenes and stamps, and your whole picture has a beautiful background on it. Now, if you happen to go over your edges as well when you're putting this on, you can take it off just that little area and reapply it, because you'll never get it off entirely. You'll never get it off entirely. What I mean, sorry. Obviously, I cannot concentrate doing this and not go out of the lines and talk at the same time. You don't have to take the whole thing off. Just remove the little area where you went over the line and you didn't want the masking fluid to be. And you're going to rub it off with your fingertip. And I'll show you later how to do that, how we remove it. And then you can reapply it and hopefully not go out of the line again. All right, now this little area here, there is no way to cover this up without covering the little background piece. So when I said about inking your whole background, you may have to touch this area up. I do not have anything to color or stamp over top of this. I'm not going to put the masking fluid on that. There's nothing going over it, so I'm just going to leave that off. And that way, when I put my background on later, the background will go in between there. Now, this masking fluid dries out on the cap and stuff very quickly, so I suggest that you cap it in between uses, and it dries very quickly on here too. So I'm going to dispose of this, and I'll get a new one out when I move on to the next section. And what I have found, because we're working within a time limit, normally I would do this and then I would put it off to the side maybe for an hour and go on and do other projects, and then come back after an hour or so and it's nice and dry. What I have found, if I try to be too fast with it, that it may peel your cardstock when you go to remove it. So what you can do to prevent that is use your heat gun and dry it quickly that way. So I'm going to be off to the side here while I do that. Again, I'll put the picture back for you. And I'm just going to spend some time and dry this up nicely before we move on to the next section. Now it does remain tacky, no matter how dry it is. But I am going to dry this just a little bit more because there still is a little too much tack in it for my liking. So I'm going to dry it a little bit longer. You're going to just have a hint of tackiness to it when it's dried completely. Just be careful not to burn your paper. Let that cool down. I'm going to show you. So now I did put her in, these are we call these step outs when we're doing classes like this. So these are my stages. So we have done this one, except I didn't put her in there. We can add her later. And this is the next step. So we're going to move on. You can see I've pulled some of this off. I was showing somebody else with it, but you can see where I've started to pull that off. There is a little bit of tack left in that. Not a lot, but a little bit. So what we're going to do is, now that I've got this on here, that's better. That feels much better now. We're going to move on, and we are going to start putting all this in and the Christmas trees in. All right, so I'm going to put that off to the side. And you will get a little bit of bubbling and bowing with your paper with this. It is a liquid that you're applying, so there's no avoiding that. Once you mount it down onto something, it works much better. It works much better. It flattens it out. All right. I'm going to grab a couple more magnets here, actually. Look at that. How many do I have? There we go. Toss some more of these in here. All right, so what will I start with? So actually, now, I know I said we're going to start with the buildings, but now that I'm looking at my finished picture, we are not starting with the buildings because the next image in the front is this Christmas tree. So this is the next one closest to us. Maybe we'll add the girl at the same time because I do want her in here. I'm just going to put her over a little bit closer this way. But we're going to pull that tree out. You can use whichever tree you want from your package. I'm just going to follow right along. And I am using this Christmas tree here. Which one is it? I'm using this one. The second biggest tree. So I've got it here. And you can see it's tucked in behind here. So I'm just going to lay it out. It tucks in just a little bit behind there because I'm condensing this picture a little bit. I'm going to tuck it in a little bit more maybe than what I did in the original picture. And then I'm going to put her right there. Just like that. So this stays on. We're putting those two images in. Just looking, trying to think what else could we put on here? So we're going to do this and this. We will mask them, and then we're going to do these two trees and Santa next. So we'll do the first tree and the woman waving. So you just have to look. In this case, if you're following my picture, I want to put this down here. Hold that down a little bit better. If you're creating your own picture, you're just going to go and do it as you go along. And I'll be honest, when I was putting these trees in, I honestly thought that they were way too big scale-wise. I want that tree a little darker. I thought that they were too big scale-wise, but once I got them in the picture and finished the picture and removed the masking fluid, I was confident that they were the right size. You have to just take that leap of faith and run with it. So we're done with the girl, unless you wanted to use her somewhere else, and you could just, one of the things you can do is tuck her behind something else where maybe you're only seeing part of her. Oh, and see that? See, I got some ink on my picture. Darn. Ink where I didn't want it. I might be able to cover that up with a building later. Hold on to your tree. We're going to need that again. So I am going to I don't want to pull that off right now, so I'm going to mute you just for a moment. All right, I'm back. Okay, so now I'm going to grab a new dauber, and I am going to add masking fluid to this. And again, I'm just doing her because when I color my background, I want to be able to color over top of her. And try to get, when you're putting the masking fluid on, you want to cover up the outer inked edges of whatever it is that you have stamped. And that way, your, in this case, black ink is going to stay vibrant and not be faded because you've colored over top of it. So it does require patience and a steady hand, which, as you can see, I'm not exactly steady in the morning. I'll come back and tidy that up because that didn't work. Now, I cannot do her purse strings, so I will go over that with that fine tip marker later. And then I'll touch up any little areas with that marker later on. Now I'm going to do the tree. And this is the area here, right here, where I said the ink does not dry up. So even when I blow dried that, that stays damp. So I just want to make sure I get right up to the edges here. And that's why I recommend that you keep some papers, some post-it notes, something like that handy so you can cover those areas up if you need to, just to keep your hand from going in it. So you can see I'm using the side of the dauber to cover wider areas, bigger areas faster. That's where a paintbrush comes in handy. I wanted to find something that was a universal if you wanted. You can order these. Now make sure you're not filling in these little gaps with anything, because the building that we're gonna, or the tree, actually in this case it's gonna be a tree, that we're gonna fill in back there, you wanna be able to see that in those gaps. Those are the little things that are gonna give you your dimension to your picture. Okay, I think I've got all the areas. Checking my hands, make sure I don't have any ink, wet ink on them. And again, I'm going to mute you for a moment. All right, I think we're good there. Just going to let that cool off a little bit. It's a little warm from the heat gun. Let's see if I can't. So this, I call it gum. It reminds me, an eraser is actually probably more appropriate of a description. When you start to take this off, all you need is your finger, your fingertip. I'm not sure if this will work on this. There's a little bit there. Yeah, actually, that's not too bad. That's okay for doing in little tiny areas where I have got a little bit too much in there. It's hard in the teeny tiny areas. Take that off like that. All right, so where'd my picture go? All right, so we have now done the house here. All this, we've put her, she's just over here a little bit more, and we now have the first Christmas tree. Next, we're going to do this tree and this tree. So this tree, this one here, is the same as this one, just tucked back in behind here. And this is a new one that we're going to pull out from our package. I'm going to just set that here for a moment. So we are going to use this tree right here, this one, and this one again. So this one I'm going to put like this, because by placing it farther back away from here, and it's going to be tucked in behind, this little things like this are what give you your depth and dimension to your images. So by having it set back, it gives you the illusion that you could walk in between these Christmas trees. They're not lined up side by side, but it is set farther back. And using a smaller image as well will help. You can put a larger one in there, put it a little farther back. So this one here, I wanted it to look larger than this one because most of it's covered. I can do that. You can't see the base. So I'm going to put it up a little bit higher. And I'm going to, actually, I'm going to move that one out of the way for the moment. And it's going to go right here. So then I'll adjust this one. You know what, I'm going to do this in 2 steps. I could put it there, have it further out. I don't want it further out though. I want to try and keep this image, this picture scene a little farther back. I could make it, I don't want it taller than the steeple here. I don't know why, I just don't. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to stamp just that, and then we'll come in with the other tree and I'll stamp that, because it doesn't matter if they overlap here, but I just can't stamp both at the same time because I can't get the one stamp over far enough. just cleaning the, there's my ink blobbed. I'm actually going to switch my ink pad. I'm finding this ink pad is too juicy and it's actually putting too much ink on my stamp. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay. So now a little bit more. I'm just trying to get a little more. There's just not much pattern in there. You do have to put a little bit of pressure on because this masking fluid does add a little bit of dimension, like physical dimension. And your stamp, you just need to add a little bit more pressure, but be careful not to put too much pressure on. All right. So there's that tree. Now, just grabbing a sticky note here because I want to cover up where the ink is sitting on here. I don't want that transferring onto this tree. And this tree, we're going to tuck it back in behind here, just like this. Beautiful. All right. Pull that off. You can see some of the ink on the back of that, and that just keeps everything clean. Okay, I've given up trying to keep mine clean. This won't be reusable, but when you're at home and you're doing this kind of stuff, you can be washing your hands and getting rid of all that ink in between. Now, I got to dry this, and then we'll build our scene up. I'm going to mute you again. All right, that part's dry. I'm going to mask it, one more dry, and then we're going to put a couple of buildings in the background here, and you'll really get a feel for how, oh, I used the wrong item. Here we go, try this again. All right, now I'm just going to mask off the tree. Now you're going to mask in this little area here, because now anything else you stamp, you do not want that stamping on top of that again. Because when you go to color it, that's going to be your tree. These little dabbers actually absorb a lot, so just be careful when you're using them if you choose to use these. they hold quite a blob of this masking fluid. Oh, I just noticed too, the magnets get really hot when you're using the heat gun on top of your stamping platform. Now our next scene, or the next stamp that we're going to do, as you work your way backwards in your scene, you're going to see that you'll be able to apply more stamps and fill in between. But it is, as I said, this is not a quick process. I could have taken probably 3 hours to do this, and even then wouldn't be done. All right. So one more time, I'm going to mute you, and I'm going to dry this, stamp the next set, and then I'm going to move on. We're going to put this one off to the side, and I'm going to move on and show you how to remove, because I am nearing the end of my time. I'm just looking for my time again. I lost it. I can't see it again. I know I don't have a whole lot of time left, so I'm going to speed this up. I'm going to mute you for a moment. Okay, that looks great. All right, so it's really nice. Let that cool off a little bit. I've got a couple of other cards that that I'll show you too as we're nearing the end. I've got, I keep losing the time. I've got, what have I got? 5 minutes, 6 minutes left. So we're going to do that, and then let's have a look-see here. I'm going to put Santa in, because I have to put him in before I put any buildings behind him, but I can start building here. So I'm going to do this piece and Santa, and then I'm going to move forward from there and show you the other stuff that I've done to give you an idea how to do it. All right. So, got Santa standing here. And I know you're thinking it looks like that she's got her arm and he's standing on her, but I promise you, he is not. When you finish this, you have to have faith in the process. I need to find which one of these I used for this. All right, so now I've got my Santa in here. I actually want him a little closer to the tree. And this building here. I'm going to put that back in there. So we're only going to see a little bit of this building. Maybe even over a little more. Stamp them into place. And remember, always remember, where you've stamped over top of the masking fluid, it will be wet. So make sure you cover that up before you move forward with anything else. Get some wipes to clean these up temporarily. When I'm doing stuff like this, I just wipe them with the wipes, but sometimes you get little fibers that stay on, so I usually like to wash them up later with soap and water. Get rid of any of those fibers, dry them off with a fiber-free cloth. All right, so I am not moving forward with this particular this portion, but I'm going to move it off, and I'm going to show you a step out and how you're going to remove. So we started like this, and now the next part is this. So I've stamped here and here. So then I just build up, and then I just keep building everything across here. So all these buildings back and behind here in my image are all, just imagine the street going across here. So, but they're behind the trees. So other than lining them up, you don't have to do any masking unless you come over here. And then when you come over here, you can see there's an overlap there. You would have to mask that building. No, you would have to do this first. Sorry, see, even I have to stop and think about this sometimes. If you want to do this, you would have to stamp this first, then put that one in behind it, because you need to mask this area here. So for removing your masking, once it is dry, once you've done everything, once you've colored in your background, if you want to take advantage of the masking and ink your background, what you're going to do is just take your finger and you're just going to rub it like this. I do a circular motion. Make sure your fingers are clean, otherwise you will leave little black smudges. And you can see, I don't know how well if you can see that. Let me see. That's a funky picture. But you can see how it's almost like elasticized. It's like a pulling eraser, the pieces that come off erasers. And then you just gently work away at it. If your background paper starts to peel, it is not dry enough and you need to leave it and dry it more or walk away from it. It's the hardest thing to do because you just want to finish it. But I'm going to tell you that it took me over 8 hours just to stamp this picture and start to color it. 8 hours in this picture. But boy, it was fun. Now, I want to show you this beautiful scene that I have done using more All in Create stamps. Just show that off to you. We've got gifts. It's actually almost an overcrowded picture. I probably overdid it. I did it to show you how much dimension and layering that you can do. And these are the stamps that I used to create that image. 1224 for the Santa, 1221 for the car, the gifts, and the trees, and 1223 for the reindeer. But so much detail can be obtained through that. And look at this gorgeous card. Emily actually created this just on a pre-cut card, simple, and she did not use masking fluid for this. So just to show you that you can use them otherwise, and they can be used to create a beautiful little card as well. I look forward to seeing everybody next month for our fun envelope making class. Everybody have a great day, and I hope you really enjoyed this.